We're live. Beautiful. We're a little early. We'll give everybody a second to hop on. But you tell me you're 3-0 in these playing games, huh?
Well, I haven't bet them. I'm 0-1 in posted picks, but based on my
so 3-0 in your head, that doesn't count.
Yeah, we're not going to mention that.
3-0, but so how did you pick wrong? What did the dog?
No, I went against the spread. I thought
So
the
the
dog
favorite
was
won, but didn't cover.
I thought the dog was going to cover, and they didn't.
Wait, what? You picked the game right, but not the spread right.
Yes.
So you picked the favorite.
The
favorite won by too much.
The favorite won by more than 4.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I gotcha. That makes sense. I'm trying to find our I got to link our YouTube to the channel. Oh, all right, here we go. Yeah, buddy, we're live. All right, I'm posting our link to the Twitter right now.
That's fine.
Live now.
Let me know when you want me to hit record.
Yeah. All right. We're good. We're live.
Let me start recording this. All right.
What is up, everybody? Welcome again to another week of the Chalk Talk podcast. I'm your host, Ken Doolittle, joined as always by resident college basketball fan for this season and my co-host, Michael Burke. Coming to you last week, I did a little fireside chat for you guys. This week, we're coming to you a little Dirk Nowitzki style, holding the mic circa the 2011 NBA Finals post games. Burke, tomorrow's the best day of the sports year, isn't it?
Tomorrow is what we like to call Christmas in March. It is one of my favorite, most anticipated sports days of the year. Everybody still has a chance in any of their pools, just as good as anybody. And then usually by about 3-4 o'clock, half the world's complaining about one big upset or something like that. So, but this is one of the best times of the year. Really, the professional life with your work completely slows around lunchtime tomorrow, and it's not going to pick up until about Monday next week because you got games going on for 4 straight days, just nonstop action. And it's all the best teams in the country. So, you're going to get a lot of close games, possibly some buzzer beaters, hopefully some good upsets. And hopefully by Sunday, a few of you, after listening to some of our tips on here, will still be standing in whatever office or friend pools you'll be in throughout the course of the next few weeks.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the goal tonight, right? Like we're not future seers, but we can hopefully help you fill out the bracket a little better. I was listening to Jay Billis on a pod today who made a very good point, and he's one of the best at picking these or predicting what's going to happen in these college games. But even he was like, I can't predict who's going to win. I can just kind of tell you what's going to happen and how these teams play and how they match up. But who wins and who covers, more specifically, is really more so, I don't want to say random, but it's much harder to predict. But 2 things that you said that I want to hit on. Number one, the buzzer beaters, one of my favorite bets. And I feel like this is a fading the public or fading the fun kind of bet. I bet every year that there's going to be 0 buzzer beaters from Thursday to Sunday. And that hits almost every single year. You believe that?
Say that one more time.
No buzzer beaters from Thursday to Sunday. And it hits almost every single year. It's like minus 200.
Well, what's determined?
The clock has to go to 0 well
So
the shot
basically,
is.
if somebody hits a game winner with like .4 to go,
It doesn't count. It's not a buzzer beater.
That's very safe.
It's one of my favorite bets.
It's a good bet. You got to get through 32 games, and a lot of people think they're going to be close, but usually that game winners with some change left on the clock. So,
well, no. The game winner includes anything the buzzer beater includes anything that's a buzzer beater. So it could be Gonzaga up by 30.
Oh,
but usually in that case, they're not shooting or they're running the clock out. So you get some of those too.
Right. But what if you get one of those teams that just like gets the ball down, they're down 30 and they just chuck one in as time expires?
Well, that's the risk. Then you lose the bet. But I've won it a couple of years in a row. If you could find it on a sports book, it's a fun bet because you're either instantly out of it right away or it's something you could at least watch every single game for and have some fun. But I like that one. I feel like that's maybe going against the fun, but I don't know. I feel like it hits pretty routinely. And then number 2, we were talking about tomorrow being the best day of the year. And I tweeted this out on my personal account earlier today. And I was just thinking some of the best sporting days of the year, because I don't love college basketball, but the Thursday of March Madness just is a lot of fun. Probably one of the least productive office days across the country because not a soul will not have their second monitor up to the 4 screen of the games or something like that.
Not only that, but in the morning before noon, you got people probably using their work time trying to fill out these.
You got to fill out a bracket. You're probably in a work pool and you're handing that into somebody.
Something got deleted. You're trying to overanalyze everything and you're just running out of time and just a very wasted day. That's for sure.
Nothing gets done from tomorrow morning really through next Monday. At least in my personal life, I'm sure everybody else can echo that. But some of the best sporting days of the year. So March Madness Thursday and Friday, we'll lump that into one, but we'll say Thursday, number 1. I was thinking the Masters Sunday. That's a pretty epic day of the year. It's springtime, right around Easter. The weather's turning. It's usually a good competition day. Opening day for baseball. The season really starts to drag, but opening day is usually pretty cool. And you get to see a lot of teams play and another good weather time of year. The Super Bowl obviously comes to mind as one. NBA on Christmas Day, obviously, because it's Christmas, but also I just love the games on Christmas Day. I like the Sunday at Wimbledon. Do you have anything else out there?
I'm a big fan of US Open Sunday for golf. That's Father's Day. That's Father's Day weekend. I think I get there. Obviously, I think you mentioned the Kentucky Derby already. That's
the Derby's another one I tweeted. I think that's a good day.
That's a kickoff for summer. I'd say NFL wildcard weekend and the divisional series. I think that's a pretty good tandem there too.
I'm going to change that a little bit. I think you're right, but I'm going to say the first Saturday of NFL football, whenever that comes, usually sometime in December. I love when that Saturday football starts, man.
Right. And I enjoy, honestly, I like New Year's Day with all the college football games. I mean, I know it's kind of watered down now because they move a lot of the big games before January 1st, but you used to have every single major bowl was played on January 1st, and that was the day of college football.
Yeah.
But not so much anymore, but that used to be back.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a big one for people that like college football. I despise college football, so I can't watch it, but it is a big day for college football. And you could even say, like, what do they do? New Year's Eve now too? They do a couple games.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's the Rose Bowl hosting one of the semifinal games, all the playoff games have been New Year's Eve now. So it's kind of like a 2-day ordeal, which kind of waters it down a little bit. Not as fun, but
well, this goes up there. I think this is number 1. I love the Thursday of March Madness. There's just games all day and there's so many games on that you really can't go wrong. And there's definitely bound to be some good games. You like the upsets more than I do, though. I hate the upsets because that means that we got to watch a shitty team play again next week instead of a good team. Last year, Illinois losing to Loyola Chicago, right? Yep. That not only ruined my bracket, but ruined my entertainment probably for the next 2 games because I had watched that crappy ass team play and that big white guy with the mustache. I had to watch him play instead of DeSumo and Kofi. And I wanted that.
If you dug down to the analytics like I did, Loyola was just on par with Illinois.
Well, look, I remember you telling me that, and I don't want you to toot your own horn, but I'm going to toot your horn for you. You were telling me that was a game to pick.
For the record, I did not have the balls to make that pick in my bracket, so I did lose on that game.
Oh, you did? See, I was letting you get away with it. I thought you actually picked it because you were talking to me about it.
The numbers were right in front of me, and I couldn't pull the trigger.
Well, all right. Well, I was going to give you some credit there, but I mean, you still talked about it. You still picked it, but then we had to watch that team again. And I would have much rather watched Illinois. So how do you justify that as somebody who likes the upsets? when we see a 14 seed beat a 3 seed, people don't realize we then have to watch that 14 seed again and potentially again instead of seeing the best teams.
Well, often with these upsets, it's very rare that double-digit seeds advanced more than one round. Usually it's just like a one-round ordeal, and then the cream starts to rise to the top, with the better teams advancing in the later rounds. But I think it gives that fighting man a chance. Like even the small schools that don't have all the money invested in the program, they don't have the blue chip recruits coming in on a yearly basis. It gives them a chance. And when one of these situations, like for example, I went to a small college, Lehigh University, not on par with the big ACC school, stuff like that. When they beat Duke in the 2012 tournament, that the whole campus was going crazy. And the whole sports world was actually going crazy because of just the magnitude of an upset like that. And even though they lost in the second round,
huge, I know.
That second game wasn't as spicy for viewers, most likely, but
yeah.
people always, the upsets last longer in memory than what happens, and it's part of the history of March Madness. I don't know,
man. I don't know. I'm still on the other side of that. And you mentioned that Duke one with Lehigh, and that was a big one. And obviously, I had texted you because you're associated with Lehigh. Potentially the bigger one, our other pal was a retriever for a couple of years, actually played on the team, and they defeated Virginia as a 16-1 seed. And so that was huge. And we were all texting him. But like, if you don't know anybody who played for UMBC, or you don't know anybody who goes to Lehigh, you really don't care after like the next day, right? Like you're over it. And then you have to watch this bad team play again, right?
Well, they're not technically bad teams. They're conference champions in their own right. But when you stack it up against
comparison,
the Dukes and the North Carolinas and the Kentuckys, it's David versus Goliath, but that's what makes the tournament great.
Now, last year, I did enjoy a big upset because I had the Oral Roberts. I actually picked them.
Oh, you did?
I did. You remember texting about that? Because I think that was it must have been a Friday night game.
That was one of the first games on Friday, and a lot of people at Ohio State going very, very far. And I only had them going in the second round, so I wasn't as nervous as a lot of the people were. Yeah. But Oral Roberts, they ended up winning 2 games. They almost won 3 games. They almost won again. They had a chance to win it in the Sweet 16, and the 3-pointer rimmed out. But
I remember that. Who was that? Florida, or did they beat Florida? I don't. Maybe
no. That was against Arkansas.
Arkansas. Okay. Yeah. They had a good stretch last year.
Yeah. My biggest pick last year was the 14 seed Abilene Christian knocking off Texas.
Texas. I remember you picking that one too.
Big 12.
And I remember watching that one. And I don't do as much homework as you do. So I'm like, why is he picking this, purple wearing 20-point a game scoring team? It turns out that they were just disgusting enough to like hold down Texas.
They were number 1 defensive team in the country against a relatively average offense who just played 4 straight games against, they were not in-state rivals, but they're in-state teams, both from the state of Texas. And I felt really good about it and ended up hitting, although I didn't have them advancing further than the next round, but not many people are insane enough like me to go out on a limb unless you kind of dig into the numbers and the weeds a little bit to try and figure out maybe this team does have a chance.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing, right? Like you could pick the upsets that you want to pick, and you could try to be wise and you could try to like outsmart the crew, or you could try to be right. And sometimes there's a big difference there of like trying to pick an upset just because you think there should be an upset versus like actually picking an upset because you think it could happen. So we're not here to talk about last year. We're here to talk about this year's bracket. And I think we want to we're going to sprinkle in, we're going to talk about some games. We're going to go through the bracket. Not every game, but we're going to go region by region. But we're also going to sprinkle in some rules of how we pick these brackets. And my first rule, and we didn't kind of go over these with each other, so I'll get your genuine reaction. My first rule when picking a bracket is if I'm going to pick an upset, like a significant upset, not like a 9 over an 8 or something, and it doesn't matter because they'll probably lose to the 1 anyway. But if you're going to pick an upset, you better be damn sure that they're going to lose in the next round, right? Because you can't pick an upset over like a 3 seed and then assume that 3 seed is going to go really far, and then they do, and your whole region is cooked, right? So if you're going to pick this seed, you better be sure that team is losing to the other competitor in the round of 32.
Yeah, I agree from an upset standpoint. I mean, most of the upsets that occur in March Madness, it's like your 4 seed beating 1 seeds in the Sweet 16, or it's an 8 maybe sneaking past a 1, which doesn't happen often, but it's
Right.
usually in the later rounds. So when I analyze and I go through a bracket and I have one filled out, there's all these there's not every game means the same. Like, you're really focused on the teams that you have going very, very far.
Right.
And if they lose, you lose your opportunity to score points in multiple rounds. And it's, although you want to pick upsets and be unique, you also want to throw a little chalk in there to protect yourself, just to guarantee points down the road, because not every game is going to be an upset.
Correct. And what I'll do when I fill mine out is I'll go through and I'll stake the ones to win their first round matchup. Usually the twos, not last year because I liked Oral Roberts for really no reason. But I'll take the ones, I'll take the twos. I'll take like a small look at the 314s because those do happen occasionally. And the 314, yeah, and the 413. So they happen from time to time. Obviously, the 512 is one of the
Very
biggest
common.
upset matchups. There's
But
usually always one of those.
honestly, the most common one right now has been the 11s over 6s. That's
The
been
11s
hitting,
over the
that has
6, and
been,
there's
that
one
has
that
been
I like
hitting
this year.
so frequently. I think I'm picking.
There's one that I love this year. I'm curious if you have the same one as me. An older team, a veteran team, a good shooting team.
Sounds like Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech. That is my 11 seed. They're an 11, right? Over 6.
They're an 11. Yep.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite picks on the board. I love that one. And I think the other one that's an 11, Michigan is a 11, right?
Michigan's an 11 against Colorado State.
So they're going to get smacked around by Colorado State from what I think.
I actually don't think so. I think it's going to be the opposite way around, just because of what I saw last night with Indiana being where they are and kind of manhandling Wyoming, which is the same conference as Colorado State, makes me go out to believe that even though the Mountain West was very competitive and they got 4 teams in the tournament, it may not be as strong when you compare it to like a middle of the road Big Ten team, which is exactly what Michigan is. You look at the analytics here, the teams are basically even. So that point spread's probably going to be 2 points or less. I think Michigan was favored last I checked as the 11 seed in that game.
Wow,
and
really?
So I think you got to kind of look at the star power, and there's 2 stars on each team. One, the Colorado State player, Roddy, solid player. He's getting a lot of good reviews from all the analysts around the college basketball world. And obviously Hunter Dickinson from Michigan, their big man, who's basically willed them into the tournament by turning that.
He was there last year, right?
He was a freshman last year. And remember,
I don't like how that guy plays.
Michigan was a 1 seed last year. They went all the way to the Elite 8. They ended up losing to UCLA by 2.
Yep.
And UCLA went to the Final Four. And they've got a lot of pieces from that team from a year ago that, and when I look at if there's a revenge factor, like you get knocked out the year before relatively early and you got a lot of your team coming back, they're going to use the whole season as motivation. I think it's a good spot to take an 11 seed and take Michigan over Colorado State, even though they are the lower seed in this scenario.
All right. So we disagree on that one. It sounds like we agree on Virginia Tech. I pick Michigan to lose in I think every bracket that I have, but I do like experience. And again, you are more well-versed on this than me. So I'm doing I hop into college basketball about 6 days ago and start to do my homework for the sole purpose of filling out a bracket because it's super fun. But I like teams with experience and I love teams with NBA caliber talent because NBA talent is significantly different and better than college talent. So if you have 2, 3 of those guys that are going in the lottery or the first round, that makes a huge difference. There's a couple teams, obviously, that come to mind that are not as experienced that have won. There was a Duke team, right? 2015,
they were led by 3 freshmen. The Kentucky team with
and then the
Anthony
Kentucky
Davis.
team of 2012, I was going to say. I think I looked that up earlier.
And then before that, you really got to go back to, even though they had seniors on their roster, the 03 Syracuse team led by Carmelo and GMAC. They were two
Well,
freshmen.
there you
that
go,
led them
right?
to the
Melo, one
title.
of the top whatever NBA
That was
players
one
of
of
all
like the
time.
first teams where like a true freshman was like the go-to guy. It's like we'd never seen it before at that kind of
Right.
level, because at that time, anybody who was good coming out of high school went right to the NBA.
They went to the
didn't go
pros, right?
college.
And it shows because Melo is now in the top 10 of scoring in the league. So that was another thing, we look for these NBA players. But let's start in the West. So we have Gonzaga in the West. They've been our squad for 2 years now. Drew Timme is still kind of our unofficial mascot for the two of us. We love that guy. They have a potential number one pick in the draft. Some of the pieces from last year, they lost a couple key pieces. I still think they come out of that one. You're looking at Duke as the 2 seed, and then Texas Tech as the 3 seed. I'm going to say Duke wins their first round matchup, might lose in the second round. I have watched about 2 games of Duke this year. I don't know how they would win a close game down the stretch because I don't think they have anybody that wants to win that game.
They are going to have 5 first-round draft picks starting for them.
Really? Okay. So I didn't know that. So that goes against my logic.
Because of the youth, it's kind of showed, because with Coach K being its last year in the last home game against North Carolina, that youth, I don't know if they're feeling the pressure that they got to perform because it's Coach K's last season and they want to let him go out a winner, but they look kind of tired and beaten down. And I know the ACC is not as strong as it's been in the past, but they got absolutely manhandled in the ACC title game against an experienced Virginia Tech team that was not going to make the tournament unless they won the ACC, and they absolutely took it to them. Even though Duke is on paper maybe the most talented, if not more talented than Gonzaga. And remember, they've beaten Gonzaga already this year head to head. Right. I don't think Michigan State's going to give them a fight. I'm not taking Michigan State to beat Duke in the round of 32, but Texas Tech has some ballers, and Texas Tech, I think they can push those guys around the way they play defense. Number 2 statistically defensively in the country this year, Texas Tech.
That's as far as I have Duke going in a couple brackets.
I have them going to the Sweet 16, but I think Texas Tech beats them. And then I haven't made my official picks yet, but I'm leaning Texas Tech to beat Gonzaga to go to the Final Four.
Wow. Okay. We'll get to that in a second. I have Duke winning their first round matchup in all my brackets, so I don't think that's an issue this year. I have them losing to Michigan State in a couple, and then I have them losing to Texas Tech in the rest. So I don't have a bracket where they surpass Texas Tech as the 3. I think Texas Tech is the second best team in the West. No other competitors there, right?
Statistically, they are. Duke is right behind them at 3rd, based on my numbers. And then after that, you got Arkansas and Alabama and UConn that are right there. And even the 8-9 matchup, Boise State and Memphis. I mean, this is on paper statistically.
It's a pretty heavy region.
This is a top heavy region.
It's a heavy region,
which makes me want to think that there aren't going to be that many first round upsets in this region. But since the teams get better and they're closer in rankings offensively and defensively, you're going to see your upsets in this region happen second round and later, as opposed to the 12 beating the 5 in this region or a 13 beating the 4.
Right. Yeah. So you could see that come out here.
Which actually the 13 could beat the 4 in this scenario, because Vermont's one of my go-to 13 seeds.
Well, any of the 13s could beat the 4. I like the Arkansas team. I don't know about
any of the 16s could beat the 1 too, but it doesn't happen.
You're correct. I also saw the spread on this Gonzaga game was only like 21.5. They're probably going to win by like 30, some at 40 at least. So if that's still in the 20s, even if it's like 28.5, 29.5, I would definitely take that. DraftKings, by the way, offering a boost $50 max bet, even odds for Gonzaga just to win that game. So if you have DraftKings, that's probably a free $50 in your account. We have a comment in the chat from Larry Gilman. Fist fight during the Colorado State Michigan game odds. I'd say -120 for yes. And I'll definitely bet the yes, because I don't know. I would love to see that happen again. We also have a chat comment in the chat from Danny, who says can't spell Sweet 16 without Colgate. Danny, you are correct. Colgate, one of the darlings of the tournament multiple times, I believe, correct?
No, they've never won a tournament game.
Really?
Not out of the Patriot League. No, they've been the Patriot League representative the last 3 years, and they pushed their first round opponents to the brink, but they haven't come out on top
That
yet.
must be what I'm thinking of. I thought they
Buck,
won a couple games like one
Buck,
year or something. Maybe not.
Bucknell was a long time ago. Lehigh, obviously, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I thought there was a year where they won a game or two, but maybe not. Maybe this is the year. Who knows? Are they even in the tournament? I don't know.
Yes, they are. They won the league, and they're facing off in the.
Well, we'll get there.
They're in the Midwest. We'll get to that later.
We'll get to that one later. Let's start with the E, or let's move to the East. So Baylor, the 1 seed in this region, and then you have Kentucky as the 2 seed, Purdue as the 3. UCLA is the 4, St. Mary's is the 5, and then who cares is the 6 through 16. It's hard to bet against Baylor. They have a good team, but I am going to bet against Baylor. Kentucky is my favorite to get out of this region. The other game to highlight in this, UCLA may be a sleeper because they have a couple returning pieces from last year's Final Four run.
They've got that team. They've got all the returning pieces plus some transfers.
I hate that team so much. I will not bet on them. So I am totally biased here, but I'm not taking UCLA to come out of this bracket. It sounds like Burke will make a better case for them. I'm taking Kentucky because I think Kentucky is one of the 5 or 6 teams that has a shot to win the whole thing. I don't know. Why not take them to get out of here? The other game that I want to take a look at is Murray State and San Francisco. On paper, those are both probably 6 seeds, and it's a 7-10 matchup. I think they're both really good. I think Murray State is really good, and I think it's unfortunate that they draw Kentucky in the second round. So I'm picking Murray State in that game to lose to Kentucky in the next round.
I think it's a shame that Murray State and San Francisco drew themselves because I feel both of those teams are capable of winning a first round game. That's just how good
I think they're both 6 seeds. Yeah.
No, well, San Francisco's the 10 and Murray State's the 7.
I think they should both be 6 seeds.
Based on the data I'm looking at, they should be at least a seed higher and in different regions. Just it's a shame that the committee did that because those are Murray State's got 30. They're 30-2 this year. Even though they don't have Ja Morant on their team, when Ja torched Marquette in the NCAA tournament 3 years ago, the seniors on this team now were freshmen with him. So they have that experience in the tournament about winning a game. And this team is somebody to look out. And if they get a matchup with Kentucky in the second round, they're going to push them to the brink. I just don't know if they can get past San Francisco. San Francisco is a very solid team.
Yeah.
They got a superstar player. I forget what his name is. I think he's a point guard, but that game is going to be even though it's not a high profile.
It's unfortunate though, because it feels like it's more of a high profile. It feels like it's like an upset, round of 32 game or something like that.
That is my low key game of the first round.
I believe Murray State was the best 7 seed. And San Francisco was the number 1 10 seed. So they're both the best of their seeding. Right. So how this worked out then that they play each other and then play Kentucky is, not for me to say. Speaking of seeding, we have another question in the chat. Larry says, are you guys into seeding? I saw a take about people complaining about conference champs having to play-in games while big schools get in randomly. I actually agree with this. I was talking to my coworker about this the other day. How can these play-in games not be anything other than 16 seeds? I don't understand that. If you have to play your way into the tournament, how are you not a 16 seed?
I actually am going to disagree with you on this. I thought this was going to go somewhere else. I think what they should do is all the 16 seeds in the tournament have won their conference tournament. You're not getting a Mississippi State that is getting a 16 seed. They're all low major conference tournament winners. And I have seen things, and I'm actually in agreement with it. Let all the 16 seed conference champions get in, whether they get a 16 seed or a 15 seed, let them get to that Thursday or Friday first round matchup instead of having to play one of them to face a number 1 seed, and let the final 8 play-in games be the last 4 in and the first 4 out, and let the bubble teams fight their way in for the last spots. I think that would be a significantly better way of doing it. And that way, anybody who's on the bubble has a chance to play their way in. And if you can't win a game against a bubble team, you don't deserve to get in.
That's interesting. But guess what? To me, we already have 64 teams. It's too many in the first place. We don't need 68. And we certainly don't need these bubble teams playing more games to get in. Like, tough luck. If you're on the bubble, you should have won more games this year. You know what I mean? So I get your point. I just think that 64 was the right number. I don't know why we need 68 in the first place. But it comes down to like a disdain for these mid majors, right? Like they want the big conferences to win, and obviously the big conferences probably will win. But I don't understand how, if you have to play your way into a tournament, that you're not the 16 seed. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, make that conference winner. Give me Norfolk State as a 15 seed then, and make these play-in games where it's whoever the play-in game is in that region, Rutgers or Notre Dame, I think, or is the play-in game that's yet to come. Is that right? They should be a 16 seed then.
No, they shouldn't.
But they're not in the field of 64. So how can they be seeded higher than the teams that are in the field of 64? Like, that's doing a disservice to the conference champion.
Well, it's because it's the Power Five versus everybody else scenario. Those Power Five.
Correct. That's what I said. Yeah.
They're just better. So they're not going to get a 16 seed. You're not ranking the top 68 teams in the country, because obviously some of these conference champions wouldn't be in the top 68 in the country.
Correct. Right. I understand that, but you're giving 64 seeds, right? Or you're giving 60 seeds, and then you're having 8 teams play to get into 4 remaining seeds, spots. Right?
Correct.
So I just think that if you have to play your way into this tournament, you shouldn't be anything higher than the lowest seed in the bracket, right? Like the NBA play-in, if the 7 seed beats the 8 seed, they're not suddenly, if the Nets win the play-in tournament, they're not suddenly the 2 seed because they're better than the other teams.
Agreed, but it's a little bit different, because
it's a little bit wacky, because the logic is,
because in the NBA you play every single team, so you kind of know where you stand on that. In college,
I get that.
You don't do that, and you double up on teams that are not as good as some of the major conferences that are doubling up on teams, and that's what goes when
that's fair.
The schedule and the analytics and all that kind of stuff, which is why some of these playing games, you got teams fighting for 11th and 12th seeds as opposed to 16 seeds, and I feel like they should all be fighting for the 11, 12, and 13 seeds. Let all the bubble teams get in or fight for their spot, and give all the conference champions that automatic without having to play Tuesday or Wednesday, get on a flight late, and then travel somewhere Thursday or Friday, which another thing that I'm absolutely disgusted about. All these teams playing in the first 4, the winners, at least with Indiana last night, they have to fly to Portland. They flew after the game immediately to fly out to Portland. You got a 3-hour time difference, short rest, got to play a game tomorrow. And then tonight's game, the Rutgers Notre Dame winner, they got to go, I believe, to San Diego. At least if they're going to be doing a playing game and then they have to travel for a game 2 days later, keep it in the same time zone or something. I mean,
yeah, I guess. I don't know. I find
that's honestly going into my thinking, because St. Mary's is already on the West Coast. They don't have to adjust. Alabama's probably already out at their location, so they're more acclimated than these teams flying in late tonight, early tomorrow. Travel sucks. Coming from a former Division I athlete, you travel.
There it is. There's the name drop.
And you get in late at night and you have to play the next day. You are definitely rusty.
Yeah, I think that should go into your consideration for the bets and for your bracket, certainly. But I mean, they're going to get to be in the tournament. So that's, they won their game. And if you don't want to do that, then hey, be better in the regular season. And then you don't have to do your play-in game. But talking about seeding real quick too, who does the bracketology? Is it Joe Lunardi?
Joe Lunardi's ESPN, Jerry Palm's CBS.
And so these guys get like 67 or 66 of the 68 teams every year. And maybe they're perfect a couple of years. Is it really that hard to do? I feel like if you and I sat down for like 20 minutes, we could get like 62 of the teams, right?
Yeah, but there's a lot more like minor criteria that the NCAA selection committee has to hit in order to, based on where these games are located, you have to see.
No, I get it. I understand
all that good stuff. But for the purposes of ranking teams for seeding, if the sites were completely arbitrary and anybody could go anywhere, I feel like we could sit down and go through and look at all the resumes and be able to do somewhat of an accurate job.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I more so wanted to give this guy credit for developing a career that probably you and I could almost do, and he does for maybe 3 weeks of the year, and then makes millions of dollars from it, and then probably does not do much the rest of the year. So kudos to you, Joe Lunardi, for making a career out of a word you probably made up in bracketology, and finding these seeds. I'm jealous of him, to be honest. But let's take a look at, in the East region, I've got Kentucky coming out of there. Who do you have coming out of there? Texas Tech, you said?
No. Texas Tech was the West.
Oh, sorry.
I don't think Baylor can. They're a very good team again.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I don't think they had the firepower that they did last year. And they've dealt with some injuries throughout the course of this year to some critical players in their rotations that I think is going to come back to haunt them once they start facing some really good teams in the later rounds. I actually I like the top 4 seeds to make it to the Sweet 16 in this region, and then I like Kentucky to get past Purdue, and I like UCLA to upset Baylor. And so you got a blue blood matchup with UCLA and Kentucky in the Elite Eight. And I'm leaning UCLA because they were so close last year with basically everybody coming back. I think they're going to use that as a motivational factor to get back to the Final Four and get over the top and potentially win a national championship.
Yeah, and I had them as one of my 6 teams that could actually win the whole thing. So just jumping ahead a little bit, getting to the Final Four is different than winning the whole tournament. So there's a lot of teams that could, in theory, make it to the Elite Eight or the Final Four. There's only ever 4 to 5 to 6 that can win the whole thing and actually win the championship. Kansas, Arizona, Gonzaga, Kentucky, UCLA, Villanova. That's my preliminary list that I've made this year. Don't know if you have any other teams. I'm sure we'll get there in the other regions. But as far as this region, we like Kentucky. Murray State and San Francisco is probably the best game that's not a top seed. That's one you're going to want to tune into. Purdue probably wins their first round. Like Yale's not going to upset Purdue, we don't think. Yes or no? One word? No. Virginia Tech. I love Virginia Tech to upset Texas. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Burke likes UCLA going pretty far. St. Mary's, Indiana, it's a 5-12. Pick Indiana if you want. But Burke says that St. Mary's may be the play there. I don't know what he's officially picking. North Carolina, Marquette.
I'm leaning St. Mary's. North Carolina, Marquette. I'm leaning UNC.
You picked UNC on name value alone, right? Like Dwayne Wade ain't walking out those doors.
No, but Marquette's just a little too young this year, and UNC's just, even though they were in a down ACC this year, they have enough firepower to get by at least round 1, and potentially, if you're looking at a 8-9 seed winning their second round game against a 1 seed, assuming we're all taking the 1 seeds to win their first round matchup, UNC, I think, has the best chance out of any of them to win and get to the Sweet 16.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd probably agree, just because I like the other 1 seed so much. So let's move to the South region, the other side of the bracket here. Arizona's the top dog in this region. Villanova, the 2. Tennessee, the 3. A lot of buzz about them being underseeded. People say they should be a 2. I say, who cares? The 4 seed, Illinois. And then you go down to Houston at 5, Colorado State at 6. Let's talk big picture, and then we'll kind of hone in. I think Villanova comes out of this bracket. I love Arizona, and I think that this will be a 1-2 matchup. I think that Arizona advances, and I think that Villanova advances, because Arizona does the thing that I love, and you're shaking your head, so I'm interested to hear your counterpoint. Arizona does the thing that I love more than anything. They score a shit ton of points, and if you can score points, you're going to win games. And it's just a matter of time before more of these college teams catch up and just say, hey, we've got to shoot, we've got to space, we've got to score. Arizona's there.
Well,
it seems like you like them. Maybe you don't like Villanova.
Do you know why Arizona scores a lot of points?
No.
I want to tell you why. Because their head coach, who's in his first year as a head coach, was the lead assistant for Mark Few and Gonzaga for the last several years.
Who also scores a boatload of points, and they play super fast.
They run very similar offenses that are very. It's basically running an NBA offense with NBA players at the college level, which is.
And that's why I like Gonzaga so much last year, and that's why we had them to get to the finals. And then it was kind of, I liked them over Baylor, you like Baylor over them, but we knew that those 2 teams were probably going to be there because of how Gonzaga played. They played an NBA style offense where it was pace and space, and they had a big man who could do it down low if you needed him to too. I like Arizona here. Seems like you do too, but maybe you're lower on my Villanova pick.
Yeah. Villanova's a good team, but I think the Big East as a whole is not as strong nationally as it's been. It's still a very good conference, top to bottom, one of the best in the country, but the teams at the top, you look at Providence, they're a 4 seed, but they should really be like a 6 or a 7 seed based on everything. I think they're overseeded, which may be one of my 4-13 upsets in the first round. Tennessee, last year, Tennessee, I had them going far, They get blown out in round one against Oregon State, who ended up going to the Elite Eight. Oregon State this year went like 3-30. It was an unbelievable.
Wow, really?
turnaround.
No, I didn't
They
follow
go
it
from
at
the
all.
Elite Eight to 3-30. I think it was because they lost a lot of seniors from the team last year. Anyway, Tennessee, I didn't watch them at all this year, except they beat Arizona head to head. Credit, it was a home game for them, but they beat Arizona head to head. And they play defense. And in the NCAA tournament, I know you don't like defense. Defense travels in the NCAA tournament. And if you're not shooting well, you can kind of recover and play the hell out of the defensive side of the ball, and you can advance. Tennessee's got one of those defenses that can do that. They suffocated Texas A&M. A lot of people were high on them to kind of pull the upset in the SEC title game, and Tennessee beat them by 15. I think Tennessee is better than Villanova just because of the strength of schedule, who they've played. I'm not sure if they played each other head to head. They may have this year. I'm not 100% sure. I think Tennessee gets past Nova in the elite go to the Elite Eight, and then Arizona gets revenge on Tennessee for losing them earlier in the year and advances to the Final Four.
All right, so we're pretty close then. I think this is a pretty chalky bracket region. Villanova is the 2, Arizona is the 1, Tennessee is the 3, Illinois is the 4. I think they definitely win their first round game. So I don't like that 13 upset.
I wouldn't say definitely. That game is going to be very close. I would probably take Chattanooga on the spread to cover there, but I think Illinois wins the game outright.
I think Illinois is going to win that game outright too. I just couldn't pick against them. Houston's traditionally not a bad team. I would probably take them.
They are very good again this year, except they're down their top 2 players who got hurt earlier in the season. They're out for the rest of the year. UAB can scare them. UAB, I believe, was the highest ranked outside of Gonzaga mid-major conference winner in this pool as the 12 seed. They've got a bona fide scorer, and the offense and the defensive analytics, they check out. They're top 35 in both offensive and defensive efficiency in the country. They got a bona fide superstar in Jelly Walker, who's their leader. But Houston's a tough cookie. They've again, they were in the Final Four last year. They play defense. They're the best defensive team, I think, statistically in the country this year. I think I like Houston to go to the Sweet 16. I like Michigan to get past Colorado State in the first round as 11. And I like Loyola Chicago to beat Ohio State.
Yeah, I think that one could happen too. I'll go out on a limb and say that 10/7. They're actually favored in that game, Loyola. They're like a 2 or 3 point favorite.
So I just want to throw another tidbit of fact on you. Delaware is the 15 seed in this bracket.
Yes.
Do you know who their point guard is?
I can't say I do.
You remember Jameer Nelson? St.
Yes.
Joe's team several years ago, played for the Magic several years.
I do.
His son is their point guard.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting tidbit. I like that. And hey, you never know. We always have the tournament players, right? And these guys that come on in the tournament, like John Morant, his last year, he was more of a tournament guy. And it's always interesting because then you get rounds like where LeBron is calling for Shabazz Napier to be drafted by the Heat. So you can't take it too seriously. Like if a guy has a good tournament, like Steph Curry, sometimes it works out. But it doesn't always work out. But that's interesting tidbit there. So I have Villanova coming out of this one. You have Arizona. So we are pretty chalky there. Just to recap so far, I have in the Final Four a 2 seed, a 1 seed, and another 2 seed. So I have 2 2s and a 1. Burke has a 3, a 4, and a 1. Traditionally speaking, the 1s and 2s and sometimes 3s get to the Final Four. I would say that at least 3 of the Final Four teams will be a 1 or 2 seed. You think?
No.
I think that almost always happens.
It hasn't. Well, last year.
Not all 4 as 1s. I'm saying a 1 or a 2 seed.
Last year you had 2 1s, a 2, and an 11.
So there you go. There's 3.
Yeah, I think
a couple of years ago it was all 4 1s, right?
It's only happened one.
That never happens.
No, it's only happened one time ever that all 4 number 1 seeds.
One time, but it was kind of it was fairly recent, I think. Like by recent, I mean within 10 years.
It was the year Steph Curry made that run and nearly beat Kansas. It was the Derrick Rose It was
Okay.
who the Chalmers hit the shot to send the game to
Chalmers.
overtime for Kansas
Yeah.
to win the national championship. That
Yeah.
was the last time.
That was the last time that
It,
all 4-1s went to
that
the
was
Final Four.
actually that was
I don't think that
since
happens this
well
year.
since the 60-14 bracket. That's the only time that's ever happened.
Right. But the point of my spiel is if you do have your Elite Eight where it's 1-1, 1-1, 2-3, 2-2, you're probably going to be more right than wrong.
Yes.
The good teams usually shake. You might miss one of them, like you get an 11 seed that goes through, or you get a 13 that wins a couple games.
Yeah, but if you get seven of
That's
eight
right.
or 6 of 8 Elite Eight teams, you have a chance to score
That's
many
right.
points. And as the rounds get deeper in your bracket,
they're worth more points.
They're worth more points, and you have a better chance to make up ground. That's for sure.
Right. So the point being, if you have your Elite Eight and it's 4-1s and 2-2s and 2-3s, don't think you did anything wrong just because you don't have a lot of later game upsets. They don't have to happen
And
unless
even
you
though there's 32 games over the next 2 days in the first round, you should only really be very nervous about 8 of those games, which would
about
be
a handful of them. Yeah.
All the teams that are going to your Elite Eight. If you can stack your Elite Eight with at least 6 teams,
if you get 6 of them, you're in really good shape.
You're going to be in very good shape in one of your pools.
Yeah.
Or
all right. So
pools.
let's wrap up with the Midwest region here. Our last region. Kansas is the 1 seed. Auburn is a 2. Wisconsin is the 3. Providence is the 4. Iowa the 5. So not as much like name power in this bracket. Kansas is a pretty good 1 seed. Auburn, I don't know too much about them. Honestly, I don't know too much about a lot of teams in this bracket. I have a soft spot for the Richmond Spiders, so I'm probably going to pick them over Iowa. I don't know if we like that pick or not, but
Iowa's hot.
I'm picking Richmond. I'll put it on the record now. We'll see what happens. I have no research to back that off of.
They are, speaking of your senior experience, they've got, I think they had 4 of their 5 starters as super seniors, which they came back for the COVID year that everybody got. So
love it.
They're experienced for sure.
So there you go. I'm picking Richmond not to come out of the bracket, just to win their first round matchup. I'm going to take Kansas to come out of this region just because I can't find any other team that would beat them. To me, on paper and on name recognition, this is maybe the least strong bracket. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, they have Wisconsin as the 3 seed. I think they're more of a 4.
Maybe Colgate beats them.
I think Iowa and Wisconsin, I think, are misseeded in this bracket. I think Iowa's more of a 3 and Wisconsin should be the 5, but they're not. I think Providence is the most overrated 4 seed team I've seen in a very long time. I'm looking at South Dakota State to beat them outright. That's probably my biggest upset of the entire tournament. I don't think I'm picking any 14 seeds this year. I don't see it happening based on how everything's broken down. But of course, tomorrow around like 2 p.m., there's going to be a 14 seed pushing the hell out of a 3 seed. I'm going to be.
Of course. Always. Yeah. Real quick in the chat, John Warner says 2008 was the year all those ones advanced. Does that sound right?
Yes.
2008.
Yep. And like, again, I'm LSU. They just fired their head coach. So they're going into the tournament with an interim coach, and they're the 6 seed. Iowa State's their first matchup, and they've struggled to score many, many times this year. I think they've had multiple games where they've scored under 40 points this year as a team. So, and LSU can play defense. So if you're looking at a prop bet, Iowa State under in their first round against LSU is probably pretty good to take.
There you have it. Check out what the number is. Go under.
I think Auburn's probably your closest fighter to giving Kansas a chance. I do like Kansas a lot. I'm stuck between those two. I haven't made a selection yet, but it's going to be an Auburn, Kansas.
Yeah, I think it's a 1-2 matchup in the Elite Eight.
The only one that could spoil it is if Iowa continues to stay hot, but I don't think they match up.
They're going to lose to the Spiders.
I don't think they match up well against either Kansas or Auburn if they get one of the 2 teams.
Yeah, and it comes down to a lot of the matchups.
I was a trendy Final Four pick, but the Big Ten has historically done not so great in the NCAA tournament.
That's true too.
Michigan State, Wisconsin had those 2 years where they went to back-to-back Final Fours, national champion. The 1 year they lost to Duke. Usually, I mean, last year, I think the Big Ten had 8 or 9 teams in, and none of them made the Sweet 16.
They got smoked.
None of them.
Yeah, I don't think so. They
Even
did
even
awful
Purdue
last year. I
even
remember that was
Purdue
a big
this year, they were getting a
talking
lot
point.
of Purdue was getting a lot of press for being the team that could get over the hump, get them to their first Final Four, but they've got problems defensively.
Yeah, I mean,
Iowa exposed them in the Big Ten championship. I mean, they got two big guys, but just inconsistency from the outside, and you can defend against two big guys if you can. Like Gonzaga will eat them alive if they ever run
yeah,
into them.
you got to have a good balance. You got to be able to do everything to win this tournament. Again, the tournament. Well, we'll get to that in a second. Let's finish up this region. I've got Kansas coming out of this, and it's probably my most confident pick to come out of their region is Kansas.
Which means this bracket's going to go. This region of the bracket's going to be going to hell.
Which means it certainly could. And since there's no powerhouse in here other than Kansas and maybe Auburn, if you want to throw them in there could be first round upsets in this bracket. And I wouldn't be too surprised.
Like this would be the bracket where I would consider a double-digit seed winning multiple games.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Right? If you think like maybe Richmond wins and maybe South Dakota State both win, and then you get the dreaded 12-13 second round matchup. Who knows? I think that it's going to be a little chaotic tomorrow and Friday, but I think that by the second round, this bracket becomes maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, with the one prevailing.
Yeah, I'm leaning 1, 2. Well, I don't even know. I have to think about this.
Well, I got Kansas coming out of here. That's one of my locks. Burke is undecided as of yet.
Leaning Auburn.
Leaning Auburn. Let's get to the good stuff. The champion of the tournament. And again, the tournament is not to determine the best team in the country. It is to determine the winner of the tournament. And those are two very different things, because many times the best team in the country is not also the winner of the tournament, right? Because they're one game and they're college kids, and you never know what's going to happen in one game. Sometimes it is the best team, sometimes it is not. It will not be a double-digit seed that wins the tournament. It will probably not be a 4 or lower seed that wins the tournament. My winner, and obviously we do multiple brackets every year, so I have different winners. I would say my most confident winner, and I'm going to kind of go against the grain because we love Gonzaga. I'm going to say Kentucky. Kentucky is the winner of the 2022 March Madness bracket. That's my take.
I mean, they're going to have the National Player of the Year. It's a good pick. It's a great pick.
Kentucky's my team that I'm riding with. I have brackets where I have probably a Gonzaga bracket, an Arizona bracket, whatever.
They're a more experienced Kentucky team than what we're used to with John Calipari.
Right, we're used to Calipari like turning flipping freshmen out. Yeah,
old transfers like juniors and seniors, and
yep,
and they've got that mix of good, fresh, talented freshmen. It's a good formula. I'm all in on Arizona.
I was between them because I like Arizona. I think I have a Kentucky Arizona final in a lot of these brackets. I just love how much they score, man. They're almost 90 a game. That's crazy.
And they play very good defense too, to back it up. They are not a one-dimensional team.
And it's been a while since I've pulled for an Arizona team. It's been a while since they've been good. It's been a while since they've been good. And do you know what name I'm going to drop right now is the last time Arizona was any good?
Oh God.
We have a sneaky left-hander that played for
Stoudemire?
Salim Stoudemire, correct? I don't even remember when. We must have been in middle school or high school, but I remember watching them. And I love that guy. I love that team.
I forget, I think it was 2005, because they ran into Illinois in the Elite Eight.
I was going to bring that game up.
Illinois had the three-headed monster of Darren Williams, D. Brown, and Luther Head that were shooting threes before the three became cool.
Yes.
And they were down, I believe, double digits with under 4 minutes to go. Arizona looked like they were going to go on to the Final Four, and they took over, won the game in overtime, and ended up going to the national championship, where they did lose to a very good North Carolina team. But
I remember that.
I do remember that.
I was going to bring up that exact game because we were in high school at that point, and we were still in middle school at that point. 2005.
I think we were 8th grade.
But we ran a bracket back then, and I remember watching that game. And if Arizona won, I was going to win the whole thing because I picked them to beat Illinois in that game. And it was like, $200 or something, which might as well have been $1 million to an eighth grader back then. So I was really upset that they lost that game. I'm still not over it. We have a couple comments in the chat. John Warner asks if this is finally the year that Gonzaga can do it. The defeat in the finals last year was brutal, but we've seen teams come back from even worse losses. He cites Virginia. I think Gonzaga is going to be there in the Final Four. I think they're getting out of their region. I wouldn't be surprised if they won it. They've been one of the most consistent tournament teams, despite not having won the tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if they won, and I don't think you would be either.
I wouldn't either. They've got arguably the best front court in America, two All-Americans there, most likely the number one draft pick going into the NBA this coming summer. Mm-hmm. The only problem is between this year's team and last year's team is their guards. Last year you had a bona fide point guard who was a top 5 draft pick and a sniper sharpshooter who could hit threes. Their shooting is still solid, but it's not as consistent as it was last year. I just think they're not as like physically tough as other Gonzaga teams. And I can see them going to the Final Four. I don't think they can get past Arizona. And I honestly don't think they may not be able to get past Texas Tech and that tough defense, because teams that have been up in their face and pressured them and who could match them talent for talent have gotten success this year. Duke's beaten them. Alabama's beaten them. Alabama's an absolute wild card in this year's tournament because you don't know what you're going to get. And St. Mary's beat them the last game of the regular season for them. And I think you get a team that can kind of be physical with Gonzaga. You get Holmgren in foul trouble. It could be doomsday for them, but they are definitely talented as any to win the national. They're the number
they're
one.
They're talented
seed
enough where they could.
It's not a joke that they're number one seed the last several years. They have been the number one team in the country. It's just
they have a good program. They have a good, pedigree, whatever you want to say.
Can they string 6 years in a row or 6 games in a row to get it done? I'm not sold on it as I thought I was going to be last year. And even I wasn't completely sold on it because I took Baylor.
Yeah.
They're
probably my third most likely team behind Arizona and Kentucky. And then I would put Gonzaga, but would I be shocked if they won? No. John Warner also says he thought I was about to drop a Derek Williams reference there for Arizona. That's another one. I think he got drafted by the Wolves sometime in the early 2010 range. That's another good Arizona name. Katie Carter asks, what's a range for total points in the championship game? This is a good question because it's usually the tiebreaker in all of these pools.
Which never ever gets utilized.
Never comes into play.
Used. Yeah, usually there's like an outright winner, but
it almost never comes into play. But I'm going to say, these games they could be as low as in the 60s or as high as in the 80s.
It all depends. It all depends on the two teams who think are going to make it to the championship. And my suggestion would be whoever you have as your final 2, look up their average points per game and tally them up. And that should be your tiebreaker range number.
That's probably a great way to do it, because if you're in the tiebreaker, chances are you have both of the final 2 teams correct, because somebody is probably, barring a major upset, somebody is nailing the final. Somebody's nailing the final 4. So if you have the final 2 teams correct, look up their averages. That should be your total point prediction for the final game. So that's it, man. I guess you have any other surefire locks that you have for tomorrow or Friday?
Get your popcorn ready. It's going to be a great 4 days.
It's going to be a great 4 days. Don't do any work. Pretend that you're working for the next 4 days. They used to have those things. It doesn't matter anymore because half of us work from home and nobody's boss really walks around and checks. But they used to have those things on the March Madness page where if you clicked in the top right, it would default to a PowerPoint presentation or something.
Very somebody's thinking outside the box.
I love it. It was a little pop-up on the top of the CBS news page on their landing page, and it would show a PowerPoint of some ways to make your company more productive or something. So it's funny. I think it's a great weekend. Try to watch these games. It's super fun. They start at noon, right? And I think they run all night.
12-10 is the first
one.
And they go in waves of 4, and they're kind of spread out where you can watch one game to the end, then flip to another one. That's going to be with 5-6 minutes to go. And then just keep stacking them together.
And there will be a lot of good ones.
There will be games on all day tomorrow from 12-10 to well past midnight, I believe.
Yeah.
Thursday and Friday.
And
Saturday's a
it's
little bit
something
different.
I love that. And when we had the NBA bubble, that was a once in a lifetime opportunity because we had NBA games from noon until midnight for weeks straight. And it was fantastic. And you get that replication here in March Madness for 2 days. And it's significant. Like the rest of the tournament is good, but these first 2 days are what make the tournament fun.
And I'm actually excited now because last year, obviously, they were in the bubble in Indianapolis, and you could only have limited fans, if any. Like each team was allowed a certain amount of people to attend the games. You watched like Indiana last night. The games were in Dayton, Ohio, but Indiana's right next door. They travel very well, and it was almost like a home game for them. And it was nice to see the arena packed again for these tournaments. We were deprived of what would have been probably the most wide open 2020 NCAA tournament. A number of teams. There was no like great team. Here, there's probably 3 or 4 that are not a big cut above the rest, but like you're safe to pick them to go far, and there's not really other options that can like contend with them. Obviously, they can get knocked off, but that 2020, we were deprived. I think we're going to see a lot of fireworks, and it's the pageantry of March Madness is officially back starting tomorrow at noon. And
I can't wait. It's going to be a good weekend. So tune in. We'll be tweeting about it the whole time. We'll be giving you your picks for the games and everything. But more importantly, sit back and enjoy the tournament. Fill out a bracket. Fill out 10 brackets. Who cares? Pin one on your wall. See how you're doing. But just enjoy the tournament games. It only happens once a year.
And I'll be posting. I'll be posting against the spread picks.
Yeah, Burke will keep up with the betting picks on the tournament too.
I won't be betting every game. Like it'll be based on feel, and hopefully we can continue the run that we had through championship week. Did very, very well there, and hopefully we can carry that through for the next 3 weeks. And if you guys follow along, hopefully we can get your wallets a little bit heavier.
That's it, buddy. Keep up the good work. I will be back with NBA picks in the next couple weeks. I'm still on hiatus, TBD until when I'm back, but Burke will pick up the slack in the meantime. Until next time, as always, I'm your host, Ken Doolittle, joined by Michael Burke. And until we meet again, let's go watch some college basketball for once, and let's make some money.